And a very happy Wednesday to you at 12:09 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, after 3 long weeks of playing the game speaker or no speaker, House Republicans finally voted on someone that got through. Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson is now the new Speaker of the House.
And I believe he may be the first speaker to wear glasses, Randy.
Well, he's broken some barriers.
We're a country that cares about firsts. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222 is the number. We'll have more on that speaker's election coming up later on in the program. But first, we have an update for you on a story that is just absolutely horrific and illustrates better than just about anything how bad District Attorney George Gascon is at his job. Randy, we told you the story about a girl, a 13-year-old girl in Harbor City who was assaulted by a grown woman, an adult, a woman in her 30s, a mother of 7, at a McDonald's restaurant where the girl stopped with her friends after school for a snack on the way home. There's video that shows the girl exiting a restroom, and when she exits the restroom, she's confronted by the adult who says that she fights children, and wham, bam, there was a fight, a one-sided fight, which is what you typically have when an adult attacks a child, and the child sustained many injuries, bruises, psychological damage, the whole thing.
It is absolutely horrifying and even more insulting that all of her friends that she was in the McDonald's with didn't help her. They just filmed it.
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
Kids are a-holes.
I'd find new friends if I were her.
Apparently the video was getting shared around school afterwards, so on top of everything else, she was getting bullied.
They were making fun of her over it. Oh, look, there's the girl that got beat up by the adult at McDonald's.
This 13-year-old has been through hell through no fault of her own, and there was one bright, shining spot in the last few weeks when the crazy-ass woman got arrested. And turns out she's a single mother of 7, who I bet has been doing a great job of raising those 7 kids.
The LAPD is the police department that handled the case. They turned it over to the district attorney's office, recommending felony child abuse. Instead of following through with that prosecution, however, DA George Gascon decided to prosecute the woman for a misdemeanor, which means she will likely face 0 jail time at all for beating a child.
And just wait till you find out the reasoning behind it. For more, we have an exclusive interview from Fox 11.
A misdemeanor child abuse charge could mean that the suspect could face up to 1 year in jail.
She won't. That'll be a diversion program.
Could face up to 1 year in jail. Okay, buy a Powerball ticket. You could be a billionaire.
But when I spoke to the family tonight, they were outraged, including the 13-year-old girl who says she is still traumatized by what took place.
I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. I constantly have to tell her I'm sorry because she doesn't understand. She's 13. She's a baby.
We sat in Cassidy Jones' living room one day after her family learned that the woman accused of attacking her at a McDonald's restaurant last month would not be charged with a felony. Instead, the charge would be a misdemeanor. This is the
That sounds like misdemeanor conduct, all right?
Oh, yeah. Sounds like Fight Club.
This is the video seen round the world of fists flying at a McDonald's restaurant in Harbor City September 6th. A brawl that includes Cassidy being thrown to the ground and overpowered by a much larger adult. Cassidy says the attack was unprovoked, that she walked out of the bathroom and the woman swore at her and said, "I fight kids."
Isn't that an admission of guilt?
Imagine being an adult, and this is what you spend your time doing, hanging out at the McDonald's, fighting random kids.
Her mom broke the news of the reduced charge to her this Tuesday.
Very disturbing to know that nothing's really being done. It's like a slap on the wrist.
These pictures taken right after the assault show Cassidy bruised and swollen. This Tuesday, no outward sign of physical impairment, but her mom is angry. The woman she holds accountable, she says, will now get leniency.
Well, that's accountability in Los Angeles County.
Oh, yes. He checked the box.
Pretty much what we're doing to this single mother of 7 that beat the crap out of the 13-year-old at the McDonald's is a Janice Hahn.
That's your final warning.
Only it's not. If she goes out and beats another child over at the Burger King, my guess is the result will be the same.
That will be her final warning.
That's your final warning.
And then the Wendy's.
That's your final warning.
And the Jack in the Box.
That's your final warning.
I think we could do this all day.
Chick-fil-A.
That's your final warning.
How about if they're in Arizona? What a burger.
Arizona's not going to put up with that crap.
No.
And by crap, I mean the fighting, not Whataburger. I love Whataburger.
If I would have done this to her, I would have been locked up in jail. You know, and it's my child. DCFS would have taken her away from me.
Tuesday evening.
Yet we're going to leave this incredibly dangerous woman who's got 7 kids to be alone with them whenever she wants.
That's right, because she's Mother of the Year in the eyes of George Gascon.
Tuesday evening, a statement from DA Gascon's office. It reads in part, after a thorough review of the available evidence, we've decided to reduce the matter to a misdemeanor for a variety of reasons. Those include the suspect's lack of criminal history or a history of violence.
History of violence that you know about.
You have it on tape, for heaven's sakes.
If she says I fight kids, chances are it's not the first kid she fought.
No, that was a declarative statement from a woman who acted like she meant what she said.
So first things first, in Gascon's statement, we're taking the perpetrator's side instead of the 13-year-old that was beaten up for no reason.
The fact that the victim did not sustain any lasting physical injuries.
Because no bones were broken, it must not have been that big of a deal, even though this girl's sense of safety is completely shattered.
She was pinned to the ground and pummeled. She had bruises all over her body. She was swollen. What do you need in terms of proof of injury?
And the consideration that the victim played a role in escalating the interaction.
What?
She tried to protect her face.
She was trying to stop the crazy woman from killing her. She had her hands up protecting her face. And George Gascon and his insane department that is handling this case is blaming the victim.
How is it that it's your fault if you get jumped when you're leaving the bathroom?
Apparently, if we wanted this to go the felony route, the girl should have just stood there and taken the beating. She shouldn't have tried to fight back. She shouldn't have tried to protect herself.
But this is something that's very important, and I want all of you to pay close attention to this. George Gascon looks at defending yourself as culpability. You shouldn't defend yourself. This girl defended herself, so she's part of the problem. That's what he's saying.
We got some wobbly knees allies.
And the consideration that the victim played a role in escalating the interaction. End quote. I read that statement to Cassidy's mom just a little while ago. I didn't know it when I was in their home earlier tonight, and she was very upset about it. She said that her daughter will have to live with that memory the rest of her life, that she still remains distraught. I
would sue Gascon for that. That is defamation right there.
He's blaming a child who got beaten by an adult for no reason, and he's publicly blaming the kid.
I also have to report that I have learned that there is a possibility from sources that there may be another tape out there, and that may influence how the case was viewed. Laura Diaz reporting live from Harbor City. Now back to the studio.
There were several videos from every possible angle, including the security camera, including all the jackass kids that filmed it instead of helping their classmate. And it's all clear that this girl was jumped for no reason by the crazy woman who finally stopped when her McNuggets were ready.
Every news channel in the city did this story. And I would assume that not all of them used the same video footage from the same kid, considering you had as many options as you wanted because no one in there was helping her. They were all videotaping it. If a video that shows a completely different story exists, don't you think one of the news channels would have run with it?
Don't you think we would have heard about that? This story originally aired on on September 14th, on September 15th.
What more context do you need? You have the tape of the girl leaving the bathroom, the tape of the woman threatening the girl, and the tape of the woman beating the girl, and then grabbing her McNuggets and leaving.
And how come it is that Laura Diaz at Fox 11 has to break this news and read that statement to the victim and the victim's mother? Shouldn't George Gascon's office be reaching out to the mother of this victim, letting them know that they're letting off the perpetrator with nothing?
Here's something I learned today. The DA's office never reached out to the victim. And the victim repeatedly called the DA, and the DA wouldn't return the phone call. I learned that.
So George Gascon has fully taken the side of a woman who beat the crap out of a 13-year-old.
If there's another video that shows that the video that we all saw was out of context, and that's the reason that he came down with this decision, then show us the video. It's not the Zapruder film. There's not somebody on a grassy knoll catching the beating from a different angle. The video is going to come from someone who was in that McDonald's. How could a video be dramatically different from the one that we all saw? What, did the woman cut in line, the girl cut in line to order her McNuggets? Did she take the last McNuggets? What possibly could have happened that would have justified a grown woman telling a child, I fight children, and then beating a 13-year-old girl? What could be on the tape that would justify that behavior?
And how dare Gascon and his office not return the phone calls of a victim of a violent crime?
No. This girl's mother apparently is extremely upset at how the DA's office treated them. I hope she gets loud about this. She has an absolute right to be angry. She has an absolute right to be furious. She is 100% in the right based on everything I've seen and read. And if there's a video out there that leads you to a different conclusion, I'm all eyes, I'm all ears. Show it to me. But I haven't seen it. And I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I know the facts of this case. I'm not going to choose mystery door number 2 over everything that I've seen with my own 2 eyes. This is what they constantly try to do. They do this with the statistics. They do this with individual cases. They constantly tell you, do not believe your lying eyes. Believe me. Don't believe what you saw. Believe this mystery video that might exist that totally justifies what George Gascon did. In what world does that make any sense? If you have the goods, if you have the evidence that proves that your decision is right, you put it out there. You say, I'm charging her with a misdemeanor and not a felony because of this. This is new evidence that the public has not seen. Here it is. This is why I did what I did. You don't do that if your position is indefensible. And you just allude to some mystery video that you never have to produce.
When George Gascon, in his many, many, many speeches he'll be giving up until the primary in March, says that he's the true champion of victims, remember this story because it's one of many.
Absolutely. And when they talk about equity, usually people think about race. This is a case where it was a little black girl that got beaten for no reason. Equity to these people is not about race. Equity to these people is pro-criminal because they're going after this little girl the same way they went after Jackie Lacey, who's also a black woman, because Jackie Lacey wanted to put the bad guys in prison. George Gascon doesn't care about black people. George Gascon cares about anarchy. He wants the criminals to have free reign and do whatever they want. And he wants the taxpayers and the law-abiding citizens to just absolutely take their abuse and not fight back. Because apparently fighting back is incitement. Not even fighting back. In this case, it was just protecting yourself. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to listen to yesterday's show because you were doing something other than listening to us yesterday, that is easy to do.
That's right. Just go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes that way. Or the even easier way is to download the KABC app. You can listen to the KABC app, search for it, KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the most convenient way to listen live to the station whenever you're outside the AM radio signal. And it's got a podcast button right there with podcasts of this show you can listen to on your phone. You can listen to it in the car. Works great with CarPlay. Just don't listen to the podcast between noon and 3 because you should be listening live. If you're listening to the podcast, instead of listening live between noon and 3...
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I don't think they should do that.
Listen after this, though.
It's Woo Wednesday.
Ric Flair, can we hear it?
It's Woo Wednesday. Yeah, baby. Woo, 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 woo. Woo, 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 woo.
And Randy, that means tomorrow is Throwback Thursday.
That's right. And since this worked out so great last week, we're going to do it again. If you've got a suggestion for the music we play on tomorrow's show, your favorite artist, genre, theme, something real creative, we get so many fantastic suggestions. We're moving this contest all the way to the email all the time. So all you got to do if you want to play along between now and 2:30 is send us an email with the subject line Throwback Thursday and give us your idea. And at 2:30, we'll select one of those emails and they'll choose all the music for Throwback Thursday.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes Mariah Carey. Merry Christmas, one and all, at the Hollywood Bowl on November 19th. Tickets are on sale Friday at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
And soon, Randy, this show is going on the road again.
That's right. We've got a firm date. Mark your calendars. Friday, November 17th, the John Phillips Show will be broadcasting live at the brand new Gelson's West LA at West Edge on the corner of Olympic and Bundy. The grand opening of that store is coming very soon, but on November 17th, we're going to be doing a live broadcast from there in their wine bar, which is even bigger and better than the one in Century City. We had such a great time there. We hope you all come out, hang out for the day, take the day off of work, mark it on your calendars right now. Friday, November 17th at the Gelson's West LA and West Edge, we'll be doing our biggest live broadcast of the year.
It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a former television newscaster and reporter over at Fox 11 and KTLA here in the Los Angeles media market. She is now a candidate for the U.S. Senate. You can find her online at ChristinaForCalifornia.com. Christina Pascucci, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for stopping by. First, let's start out with the obvious question. You had decided to run for U.S. Senate here in California against 3 members of the United States House of Representatives who all have millions of dollars in the bank and potentially a former Major League Baseball player who played for both the Padres and the Dodgers here in Los Angeles. You're going up against some big names with big bank accounts. What made you make the call?
The million-dollar question. Well, you know, there's a number of reasons. I was covering this race closely, and I've been covering major issues hitting California for more than 15 years. And I didn't like how it was shaping up, and I don't like the California, well, I should say I don't recognize the California that surrounds me now, and I felt compelled to act, especially when I found out I was pregnant. It ignited this fire within me to do something because I want my daughter to be raised in the California that I was raised in, and it's not what I see right now.
One of the things I think that most Californians recognize as being different from their youth, I certainly see it on a daily basis, is crime. Crime is completely out of control here in the state of California, particularly in Los Angeles County. Just recently, there was a news story one of your former colleagues, Laura Diaz, reported on that happened down in Harbor City, where a 13-year-old girl stopped at a McDonald's after school for a snack, and she was physically beaten by a grown woman, an adult, a woman in her 30s. It happened on tape. The tape is tough to watch. It was a brutal beating. The girl had bruises all over her body. She was swollen. Recently, George Gascon came out and said that he is not going to follow the recommendation of LAPD, and he will not be charging this woman with the felony child abuse, which is what they recommended. He is instead going to charge her with misdemeanor because he said she doesn't have a history of violence and the child's behavior contributed to what happened. I say to myself, this is like the upside down world. This is where right is wrong and wrong is right. And this guy's on the ballot, and so many of the people who are in office here in Los Angeles, or even individuals that you're running against, including Adam Schiff, they get behind this guy. They endorse this guy. How can you be in favor of George Gascon? How could you look at decisions like this and not connect the dots that this is what's leading to the chaos that we live with on a daily basis?
Right. I mean, question, and that's part of my response to your initial question to me is, I am running against people who have a lot of name recognition. They've been in office for a long time, and this election to me is going to be a choice for voters. If you like how things have been done, you can vote for what we see around us. And if you don't and you want to change, I'm your candidate. And that's what I'm advocating for, is for common sense policies to bring us back to our ideals and what we can be. And yes, everything you're mentioning with how we've been treating victims or criminals, we've been treating criminals better than victims. That's certainly a part of the equation. Another part is just looking at our overall society and where we've placed our values, how we've underinvested in education, for example, and haven't focused on creating opportunities for our youth. Many of them aren't even reading at grade level by third grade. And instead of addressing that, which I think is a crisis, we're focused on lowering the standards of education. That, to me, is also so backwards. And all of these issues are interconnected. So, yes, we should hold criminals accountable, and we shouldn't send the message that there's going to be a free pass when people do something wrong. That's not right, and that's not the society that I think voters want to live in right now.
You just got back from a trip to Israel where, of course, the terrorist acts that were perpetrated by Hamas against Israeli civilians, largely women, children, babies beheaded, just absolutely unspeakable. You mentioned education. The state of California, we spend a lot of money on education as it is today. We're just not getting a lot in return for it. One of the things that just really jumped out at me recently is when you look at these polls of what various age groups think about the attack on Israel, there's one age group that jumps out at you that's different from all the others, and that is the 18 to 25 range. That's the only age bracket that essentially sides with Hamas over Israel. And I say to myself when I'm looking at that, these are kids that are fresh out of school. They just went through K through 12. A lot of them went on to college. If that's the takeaway that they have from all of the money that we've spent on their education, it's not that we're not spending enough. It's that we're teaching them something very wrong.
I hear that point. Well, California, make no mistake, has underinvested in education, especially from the federal level. It ranks like 30 or so, even though we're one of the largest states when you compare us to other states per pupil. And that is the problem. That's a major problem. And we're the fifth largest economy in the world, and we should be putting more towards especially early education. But in terms of what you're talking about, yeah, it's deeply concerning. I think a part of that has to do with social media and people who want the clicks, and so they're sharing incendiary things that often are not rooted in fact. And that's why media and what you do, for example, is so important, because you need to have the data, the facts, the discernment, the ability to decipher what is fact from fiction. All of that is part of what journalists do and why their job is more important than ever as truth seekers, and why credible journalists are more important than ever. I think it's a complete, utter lack of understanding. It is a fractured government that we find ourselves in. I mean, you see how adults are treating one another between Democrats, Republicans, the infighting within the parties, what we've seen in the House lately. has been crazy. And there's just, it's happening at all levels. And we as leaders need to step up and say, it's time to treat each other like humans. And if, we're treating it like if I win, you lose. Whereas we should be looking at it as we're all Americans and we need to bring our perspectives to the table and work together to get meaningful things done for the American people. And how we act infiltrates our policies globally. And you've seen that fracture in the approach to what's happening in Israel, too. I mean, if we can't even lead ourselves, how can we be leaders at this critical juncture when we're looking at what's happening and unfolding in Israel, which is just, it was an absolutely heart-wrenching trip the past few days to witness what I witnessed, to talk to the families of the hostages, to speak with government officials. I also spoke with Palestinians. I mean, it's very painful, and we need leadership now to unite us all as humans and stop this othering.
What was your main takeaway from your trip?
Well, a big part of what I've seen that I find disturbing is this whataboutism. So, as an example, when I went to visit with families of hostages, mothers of kids between 19 to 21, one of the mothers was a mother of a soldier who was taken right away. The other was a mother of a young kid who was at the music festival with his girlfriend. And I spoke about it. I actually had an interview on Fox News about it. And some of the comments I got were, well, what about the thousands of Palestinians killed? And it is an important point to note that innocent civilians should not die in this. But it's not a what about. It's a let's acknowledge the horrors of October 7th and feel for those families and keep those stories alive until those hostages are home, because that matters. Let's not lose our humanity and say, oh, well, what about these people? Both lives matter, and we should be looking at both. It's not either or, if that makes sense.
What was it like to get there? Can you just get on a commercial airplane at LAX and fly to Tel Aviv, or do you have to essentially go through a bunch of different places to get there? What was it like?
Most airlines have canceled flights there. El Al is the national airline, and it was very emotional. It was very tense on the plane ride there. The pilot got on a loudspeaker with emotion in his voice and said, we are still operating during wartime because we have to bring Israelis home. And so a lot of the aid you're seeing going in actually is flown in through these commercial airliners, through people who want to help, who are sending loads of bags with people who are heading into Israel. I sat next to a guy whose friend was killed on October 7th, and he said he felt compelled to take action, do something. It was a healing journey for him. I personally went on a philanthropic mission and a fact-finding mission, and I studied with a group of Chabad rabbis, and just to see the light that they were aiming to spread during such a dark time was really beautiful. But another thing, the daily realities of life there, you get these red alerts on your phone. They have an app you can download, and when there's incoming missiles, the red alerts go off. And sometimes the red alert was going off, 30 times. You get 30 different alerts within a span of less than half an hour. And we actually had to hit the ground a few times as the Iron Dome stopped several missiles right over our head. So the daily struggle and reality of what everyone impacted by this war is facing is very difficult and painful to watch. And, in terms of the thousands of Palestinians killed, that's included. I mean, it's a daily reality that is almost unimaginable.
Was it ever a normal experience at the hotel or the restaurants or whatever, or did you know you were in a war zone the whole time?
What it resembled in a sense was during COVID, when maybe there'd be like a couple restaurants open and you'd go and you'd have a regular dining experience, but no one was around. That was how it felt when we would go for, grab a quick bite somewhere. You almost would have that sense of normalcy for a second, but there's just so much tension and pain that it's hard to ignore. Everyone is a little bit on edge right now.
Are you glad you went?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think it's really important to be on the ground and see things firsthand and speak to different people and varying perspectives of those impacted. And whenever I've been to any war zone in the past, I was in Ukraine covering that war, and I've been to many different conflict areas like Armenia and the Middle East prior to this. And you just see the resiliency of people, and it's so inspiring to witness how strong they can be. And also how much heart there can be, especially when you look at social media, and that might tell you otherwise. But yeah, it was an incredible experience. I wish there was more I could do to help immediately.
Christina Pascucci, candidate for the United States Senate here in the state of California. She'll be appearing on your ballot this March when we vote in the primary election. You can get her online at ChristinaForCalifornia.com. That's ChristinaForCalifornia.com. Christina Pascucci, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at JohnnyDon'tLikeShow@gmail.com. That's JohnnyDon'tLikeShow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Will writes in at JohnnyDon'tLikeShow@gmail.com, and a surprisingly clean email for Will. George Gascon has certainly sent a message that the victim deserves to be victimized, and don't you dare fight back or the victim will end up behind bars.
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
It's pretty much
unfortunately.
that's what we're seeing play out.
Quite frankly,